Welcome to Touchdown Town. I'm Gilles Gallant with FTM Bets and BetsTV. This is the debut episode of Touchdown Town. We'll be here every Sunday morning helping you make quality decisions for your touchdown prop bets. Now, some would say I'm the king of touchdown props. I maybe prefer being called the mayor, maybe not quite a ruler or dictator, whatever you want to call it. And sometimes when men get in this position of power, we get drunk with it. So I needed to have somebody to kind of keep me in check and rein me in. And that's why I have my great co-host, Brenden Deeg of National Football Post, here joining me every week. Brenden, it's week one. Are we amped or not?
I get to watch Devonta Smith play football today, so I am definitely pumped.
Of course, with your Eagles gear, I can't imagine anybody would be more amped to see Devonta Smith and Jalen Hurts get on with it now. So we're going to get started here, but before we get going, I want to let everybody know that all of my touchdown score picks this year are brought to you by Jock Market, and it's a bit different than conventional betting, Brenden. What you do is you trade shares of players during the game, and you watch the prices go up and down on the players that you invest in, kind of like the stock market, and the prices fluctuate based on performance. It's really cool. If you deposit with promo code FTN, you'll get a deposit match of up to $50, and with their first market guarantee, if you don't profit in the very first NFL cash market, Jock Market, the great company they are, they'll refund your losses up to $100, but you got to place your first bet this week to qualify. Jock Market, make real money every hour, every minute, every second of every game. Now, Brenden, I don't know if anybody wants to keep looking at our ugly mugs for too long. I think we got to get right into the picks. So my first pick, I'm going to kick us off here. We're going to go to the Chiefs and Browns. I'm going with Jarvis Landry for an anytime touchdown at plus 260. That is available at BetMGM. Now, my boy Jarvis, he led the team in red zone targets last season, and for what it's worth, he did score in both of the Browns playoff games last year, including against the Chiefs. The Chiefs, they're a little bit weaker against the pass as well. 29 passing touchdowns allowed in 2020. That ranked 20th in the NFL. Now, some of that could be because of the fact that they get such an early lead, and then at that point, teams are kind of forced to throw. But with Odell Beckham kind of maybe being a little bit weaker at this point, and I know that the Chiefs are going to try to focus in on neutralizing the Browns' effective run game, I think Jarvis Landry is the bet to make in this matchup.
No, I like that a lot. He was when Odell Beckham was out last year, he stepped into that number one role pretty nicely. And this offense is going to be interesting. They were ninth in DVOA of Football Outsiders. I think it was ninth. And I'm really looking forward to see if they can do that again. Having a top 10 offense back-to-back would be a big accomplishment for them. And they got a huge secondary now too. So
yeah, and they're a very popular pick to kind of go to the Super Bowl, maybe even potentially win. Definitely a popular bet to win the AFC North. So that's my first pick. Brenden, what is your first pick for week one?
So I'm not just doing this because I'm an Eagles fan. So let me get that out
of the way now.
Let me get the non-bias out the way. My favorite pick of the week is Jalen Hurts plus 275 at DraftKings. Look, the Eagles offense is kind of a bit of an unknown right now. You got a new coach, new offensive coordinator, a new offensive line basically too, right? You got Brandon Brooks, Jason Kelce, all those guys back. And Jalen Hurts, in the run game last year, he was awesome. He wasn't those 4 starts, he was kind of hit or miss, but he was definitely one of the better running quarterbacks during the year. Had 3 touchdowns in 4 starts last year on the ground. And he was 3rd in success rate of any quarterback last year, just behind Kyler Murray and Josh Allen. I know it was only 4 games, but it is somewhat of a sample size. And the Atlanta Falcons finished 2nd last in touchdowns allowed by quarterbacks on the ground. So I know last year's stats you got to take it with a grain of salt. But look, if Sirianni's smart, if he knows his players and wants to play to his strengths, he's going to run Jalen Hurts a lot and early and often in the season. So I'm expecting him to kind of be 15, 20 touches, almost like a running back kind of.
Absolutely. And really with the one thing about Hurts, the one thing just I'll add to that before we get on to the other picks as well, is there is no point in any part of his football career that he has shown that he is not a running quarterback. Mm-hmm. You look at Alabama, Oklahoma, his brief time in the NFL, all he does is run the ball. And quite frankly, I think it's a good bet. I think I even like the over on his rushing yards as well. Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to get into my second pick. We're going to be going to the Washington football team and Los Angeles Chargers game. Brenden, I'm going with Jared Cook anytime touchdown at plus 300. This is available at PointsBet right now. The The one thing that I liked about Jared Cook in this spot is he led the Saints receivers in red zone targets last season. Now, I know obviously Michael Thomas not being there, that might have skewed those numbers, but you look at his matchup and the way that he's able to play. Herbert will look for his tight end. He looked for example, tight end Hunter Henry nearly 20% of the time last year in the red zone. Cook slots right into that role. It also helps that he had 16 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. Now, I won't really argue with somebody if they prefer Keenan Allen over Jared Cook. I just like the value as well at plus 300 in comparison to maybe plus 120, plus 130. And speaking of those odds, again, great odds with no competition. There is no backup tight end looming that we're worried about, or a tight end controversy, as they say. And the one thing I like about Jared Cook's odds in this spot is typically he was around plus 200 to plus 225 last year with the Saints to score. So at plus 300, I'm going to be banking on Jared Cook to make an impact in his first week in powder blue.
Yeah, he's like, Jared Cook's a funny player. He's almost like the talent was there, just kind of never lived up to the hype. Now he's got Justin Herbert, probably the best quarterback he's been with. Actually, Drew Brees was pretty
cool. I think we can't sell Drew Brees short at this point.
It was towards the end of his career though, right? He was only there for 1 year, but he's a big body, and I'm sure Herbert will be looking for him in the red zone. I'm heavy on the Chargers this year. I know it's a touchdown show, but I have them making the AFC Championship, and I think they got off to a hot start. I don't really understand why they're 1.5 underdogs in this game.
I think it's just being the road and the defensive line of Washington having an upgraded quarterback play. I think the sports book's kind of looking at this matchup. I think that it's good. It's kind of a toss up. I think that's what the spread indicates, that they're not really sure if Washington is as good as people say they are. And they know that the Chargers are better, even though they play in a division with the Chiefs and have an uphill battle to maybe potentially win the Super Bowl. All right. That's 2 picks for me. Brenden, let's get to your second pick now of week 1.
So I took this guy a lot towards the end of the year. Kareem Hunt. I know it's only plus 130. Okay. But, I know you're the guy that only wants over plus 200. But
that's just me though.
This one I'll peek into my card this week. Look, he had over 10 targets in only but 1 game last year. I know Nick Chubb is going to be the popular running back this year. Fans are going to want to see him get more carries, and he was injured a bit last year, and he's fully healthy. But look, Kareem Hunt got paid. He's like a top 20, I think, paid running back in the NFL. And if they're going to have success this year, it's going to be those two in the backfield with a 1-2 punch. And plus 130's got juice. And the Kansas City Chiefs last year were 22nd in yards per carry. They were 19th in touchdowns allowed. I think when they kind of get towards the red zone, they're going to look for Chubb or Hunt. And Hunt's the third down back on this team, right? He's going to get a lot of third down looks. So plus 130, I just couldn't pass it up.
Well, the other thing that's really good about the Hunt case is if they get down by a couple of scores and they do decide to abandon the run game, they're not going to bench Kareem Hunt. If anything, they'll probably bench Nick Chubb in that instance. So you do have a little bit of value with that. So yeah, I really like that pick. We're going to go to my third pick now, Brenden. I'm a little bit of stan for this guy. I probably bet him. I've been probably one of the more vocal people on Twitter talking about how I prefer him over his 2 contemporaries on his team. I'm going with Deontay Johnson of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I found his odds at plus 240 at FanDuel, which to me feels like a steal. Look, Deontay Johnson, he had 11 games last year where he had 10 or more targets. He is clearly Big Ben's security blanket. There's a weaker Steelers O-line this year. I think we all can agree with that. And that's going to likely have them throwing a lot. I expect Big Ben to throw probably 50 times in this game, especially if they get down early against Buffalo. And just speaking with his contemporaries about Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool, look, I'm not saying that Deontay Johnson is better than those two. What I'm saying is that when he's on the field, it doesn't really matter what we think. Ben Roethlisberger feels that he's better than those two. He keeps forcing it to him. And they both are at plus 200 odds or lower. The fact that I can get what I feel is the guy who's going to get the most volume at higher odds, it's a no-brainer for me. Deontay Johnson plus 240 is a good pick, in my opinion, for this week, just based on the value.
And he's the only receiver not on TikTok.
Yeah, I suppose. And maybe I'm one of the few hosts as well, not on TikTok, being in my late 30s. All right, Brenden, let's get your next pick going.
So I'm going to go with the guy that just signed a big fat contract I think it was 2 days ago, I believe. Nyheim Hines just signed a 3-year, $18.6 million contract extension. Top 10 paid running back in the NFL now, plus 240. Look, Carson Wentz is going to be looking for a security blanket at the beginning of the season. He likes to check down to his running backs. He's look, that Eagles offensive line kind of gave him nightmares, and I'm sure he's kind of still had that, like, looking down at the offensive line in the pass rush. So he's going to be looking to check it down to his running backs, and he's going to get third down looks. You're not paying a guy top 10 running back money if he's not going to be on the field on third down. Plus 240, like, I could not believe those odds. He was always like plus 180s in that kind of range last year. He was, me and you were, he was our favorite kind of towards the end of the year last year. We both liked him. I'm going back to the Hive. I think he's going to be a big part of the offense, and plus 240 again, just too juicy to pass up.
Well, I think you're a good resource too of kind of getting the pulse of both Frank Reich and Carson Wentz, especially with them having their tenure in Philadelphia. I think you have a pretty good idea now of kind of how the way that they like to run their offense and the type of players they like to utilize. Obviously, first player that I think of in comparison on Philly is kind of like the Miles Sanders role or maybe the Boston Scott role. Mm-hmm. And they were both heavily utilized when they were both still in Philly. So great pick, especially at those odds. Now we're going to go with my fourth pick. This one is the lowest odds of anyone that I'm betting, and it is a rushing quarterback. It is Kyler Murray at anytime touchdown at plus 130. Look, he's quarterback one. Like, through the first 10 weeks last year, first 9 games rather, he had 10 rushing touchdowns. Like, he's such a jitterbug. You can't stop this guy, especially in the red zone. And you could tell from the offensive schemes that they like to run in Arizona that he will just take off with the ball. In fact, I actually think that their running game with James Conner and Chase Edmonds has actually regressed. I actually preferred when they had the different running backs there last year. And the one thing that I really liked, why I thought this bet was really good, is just the Titans allowed 18 rushing touchdowns last year. That was bottom 10 in the NFL. And finally, when you look at the odds here, the fact that you're getting Kyler Murray at plus 130, I think people need to have a little refresher here of what his odds were to score from week 9 onward after he went on that tear. It was typically in the minus 120 to minus 140 range after he got hot. So at plus 130, Brenden, I think these odds are a steal that Kyler scores today against the Titans.
Yeah, if that offense could kind of recapture that magic they had for the first 9 weeks, he's definitely a good look at plus 130. They were a completely different offense, though, when you hurt his shoulder last year. It's going to be weird. It's going to be interesting to see, what they kind of come out the gate with. They kind of spent all their money this offseason on AJ Green and some older guys. They're Cliff Kingsbury's got, like, his clock's ticking. He's got to kind of get his offense going. They hired him for his offensive ability and his scheme, and it hasn't really worked out so far. But yeah, Murray, he led the league in rushing touchdowns at one point at the beginning, didn't he?
Yeah, well, through the first 9 weeks, it was basically him and Derrick Henry. So at that point, Derrick Henry is typically around the minus 200, minus 225 range to score a touchdown. And obviously, Kyler, the one thing that's beautiful about him and really taking any type of rushing quarterback like that is they're the only player that touches the ball on every offensive snap. So at any point, they could just take off and run. He has the breakaway speed and also the jitterbug type of shiftiness that he can get away from defenders, like the secondary linebackers, to be able to get in the end zone. So at plus 130, I think he is solid. Brenden, what do you got next?
So quickly, just on the Kyler Murray front, he had rushing touchdown all but one game in the first 9 weeks. So
that's right.
He was definitely heavy on the run game early on. So my next one is kind of out in left field. I was looking at the Buffalo Bills. I wanted to take someone on that team, and I went with Zach Moss plus 180. So I think they're going to get him some touches early and often. They need a running game this year, and I'm pretty sure they're emphasizing it all offseason. They've been talking about it in press conferences, and they know they need to have somewhat of a run game compared to last year. There was like Josh Allen dropping back like 35, 40 times in like every half. It was getting out of control. They need to get some sort of run game, and he's going to be number 1 back this year. He's ahead of Devin Singletary on the depth chart. And look, they need some sort of young guy in that backfield to step up. He is the bigger running back in the red zone, plus 180. Again, just too juicy to pass up. Whenever I can get a running back like that at those odds, you got to take it. And I think they're going to be kind of a different offense. I don't think they're going to be passing a lot in the red zone. I'm expecting kind of a different system from Brian Daboll. I think he's going to mix it up. He's got a chip on his shoulder too this year. He didn't get a head coaching job. I think he's going to kind of mix it up. I'm big on the Buffalo Bills offense this year, and I'm really curious to see how the kind of running back room works out. And I think Zach Moss is going to take it over. I'm not
So,
a big.
Brenden, I want to counter with this, and I just want to know what your thoughts are in choosing between Zach Moss and another running quarterback like a Josh Allen, who's sitting there at probably around plus 120, plus 125. And I just wanted to know the thought process of why you decided with Moss, for example, over somebody like Josh Allen.
So I think they're going to try to get him touches early. Like they're going to kind of get him some confidence. I was looking at Allen; he was plus 115 on DraftKings when I was doing my write up. So I passed on that. He definitely a good pick. Like if you wanted to take a bill and you're not worried about kind of the plus 100 odds like you always are, and you taught me to do that. So it's a good question. It's just I'm confident that Zach Moss is going to kind of take over that number one running back spot. And again, they're going to try to get us some touches early, get him some confidence. I want to take a Buffalo Bill, and that was kind of the best odds in that range. So.
No, and it's not a bad justification. It's just I think there's going to be people who ask, and I mean I get asked these questions all the time, being like, Josh Allen's got to be a lock, right, bro? Like, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I think so. Depends on what the odds are, and if he's minus odds, then no. Like, I'm not betting. I refuse to bet any player that is minus odds on a touchdown prop, just because long term it is just so minus EV to do that. Mm-hmm. Okay, now that we moved on from the Bills and Steelers, which I think is going to be a hell of a game, I think that this is going to be probably my favorite afternoon game to watch, and it's going to be the Patriots and Dolphins playing in Foxborough. And I am investing a unit on Bill Belichick's new play toy, tight end Jonnu Smith at plus 225. These odds are available at FanDuel. Look, I'm not going to pretend that Jonnu Smith is just going to take over and be like the number one receiving option with New England, but you don't sign a guy like him and Hunter Henry away in free agency and spend that kind of money just to have them as blocking tight ends. And the fact is, when he was with Tennessee last year, he led the Titans in red zone targets and red zone receiving touchdowns. That's including on a team with like A.J. Brown and Corey Davis. The fact that he was the one that was most utilized in that offense, I know that Bill Belichick took that to heart and probably wants to use that in that instance since Gronk and the great tight ends of Patriots past have left. And also, this might get me a little bit of hate on Twitter, so I understand if people maybe want to, give me a little troll here after I say it, but I just don't think the Dolphins D is as good as advertised, because looking at some of the matchups that they played last year, like they gave up a ton of passing yards. Like when they played top 5 tight ends, like they had to face Travis Kelce last year, Darren Waller, they got gouged like for 100 yards. Kelce had a touchdown. And I'm not saying that Jonnu is as good as those two, but I feel like from a talent perspective and ability, he's right there. And I think Mac Jones is going to need a security blanket with that pass rush coming at him. He's going to need to make quick throws. I'm not sure if guys like Jacoby Myers and Nelson Aguilar are going to be able to get open against guys like Xavier Howard and the rest of the Dolphins secondary, whereas I feel like Jonnu Smith is such a matchup nightmare. And the fact that I'm getting him at plus 225 odds, I love this bet. I really think he's going to come out and make a bang here today in New England.
And no Aguilar, right? He's out week 1. So
classic. Couldn't catch a break again, huh?
You said he wasn't going to be the number one option. He probably is. Like he's probably going to be their go-to, and they're going to play a ton of 12 personnel this year. They signed 2 tight ends to big money, so they're both going to be on the field a lot. And it was 2013 or 2012, that Patriots offense when they had Gronk and Hernandez, both those tight ends, that was probably the best offensive scheme that Josh McDaniels has ran, and he's definitely looked at that, and that's why they signed those 2 tight ends. So yeah, I love that bet, especially with Aguilar out. But I kind of agree with you, the Dolphins. I know you've been very vocal on them, saying that you were talking about betting Patriots minus 2.5 like a month ago. You've been.
Oh, I have that locked in. It's already right now. I think the line is hovering around 3.5. Yeah. So CLV King for me, but at the same time, they still got to do it on the field, and it is going to be a tough opponent.
Yeah, Mac Jones is going to be he's going to be probably passing a lot, like short passes, and him and Jonnu Smith are probably going to have a connection right out the gate. Like Jacoby Myers is like the only other guy, like basically besides him and Hunter Henry. So expect a lot of 12 personnel, and yeah, plus 225. I couldn't believe those odds.
All right, so Brenden, I believe you got one last pick to close here. What do you got?
So I'm going with another tight end, Logan Thomas, plus 180. No Curtis Samuel. He is on IR for the first 3 weeks. And he had a big year last year quietly. He had a ton of targets. He was Alex Smith and those the quarterbacks in Washington last year's kind of favorite target. And he's just getting better. He's just kind of hitting his ceiling. It's crazy to think like 29-year-old tight end is basically just entering his prime. Chargers allowed the 4th most touchdowns to tight ends last year. And Ryan Fitzpatrick's the quarterback now. The guy's going to be airing it out. He likes to throw over the middle. Logan Thomas is a big body. Besides McLaurin, he's their next best receiver, right? Without
absolutely.
So, yeah, I really like those odds. And I think Fitzpatrick's going to be making some passes that'll be kind of shaky. He likes to put it through tight windows. And I think Logan Thomas, that big body over the middle, is going to be one of his best friends. I was looking at Terry McLaurin, but I was like, plus 105. I wanted him, but
not enough.
No, McLaurin's gonna have a huge year. I want to take him again, not enough. But that was probably my least favorite pick, the Logan Thomas one. But I wanted to add a tight end there, and I think he's kind of gonna have a quiet year again, a little underrated. But that's I hate to say my least favorite pick, but definitely take it if you're looking for a Washington receiver. I think it's better than McLaurin or any of the other guys.
Well, we both got the tight ends in this matchup. I have Cook, you have Thomas. So hopefully there's a lot of passes here over the middle. I had a few players that made the cutting room floor that weren't going to be official picks. Instead, they're just going to be available on the FTN NFL Bet Tracker. And you can see those. I put a half unit on each of these. This is my 3 picks. I'm just going to read these off quickly. We won't go too deep into it, but basically Paris Campbell at plus 650 for the Colts. I really love this matchup here, especially against the Seahawks secondary. To get him at plus 650, no T.Y. Hilton. He's probably going to slot into the second wide receiver slot. At these odds, I think it's a great grab. Another guy that I'm a big fan of, more like betting on him for the multi-touchdown scores, is Christian Kirk at plus 330. That's available at FanDuel. I know we talked about A.J. Green and Hopkins kind of maybe taking the lion's share of those targets, but I still think that the Titans secondary is vulnerable over the top, and that's how Christian Kirk made his money last year. Like, he basically had 6 touchdowns in a 5-game stretch, 2 touchdown games, if that's the way you say it. And then finally, going back to that Patriots game, Preston Williams at plus 800 at BetMGM. Look, last year when he was on that team, Tua looked for him a lot. You know, the fact that Devontae Parker is maybe a little banged up going into this matchup, the fact that the Patriots secondary, they're not going to have Stephon Gilmore as well. I think Preston Williams could sneak in for a touchdown at plus 800 at a half unit. I'm throwing a half unit on that.
Plus 800. I love it.
Well, that is all for us today. Thank you for tuning in to Touchdown Town with BetsTV. That's 5 picks from me, 5 picks from Brenden. We'll be doing this every Sunday at 11 Eastern on BetsTV. I'll also have some touchdown score picks coming out later today for Sunday Night Football. So head over to FTN Bets for those. Thank you for watching Touchdown Town. Bon chance.